morning, everybody.
Good morning.
This today is a rendezvous dedicated to in commemoration of the 10th anniversary of the African Journal of Rhetoric. Thank you. Please clap it out there. We started out at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Durban, South Africa, and we received a lot of support, substantial support from the university then, because they were trying to promote African scholarship. And being a rhetorician myself, I proposed the idea to the university that we begin to look at the idea of African rhetoric, and that's how it all started. And today, as a matter of fact, March 2009 was when I received the first manuscript of the first issue of the journal. And that's why the month is really very significant. And I appreciate everybody for coming. I shouldn't give an opening speech when Dean Davis is here to help us actually open. But I thank you all for coming. Shall we, can I introduce you now, sir? This first is that.
It's your pleasure.
Dean Davis has kindly agreed to help us openly representing the Dean of COAS, Dr. Dean Medford, and Dr. Davis has been a supporter of the project in 2015 or 16, when we had the first conference here, co-hosted by Dr. Green. Dean Davis actually volunteered to be one of the chairs of the panels that we held. So, Dean Davis, we really appreciate you, and we appreciate your support for the association. Thank you very much.
I don't remember chairing.
Pictures are there.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
I am pleased to bring greetings on behalf of the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Edna Green Medford, who sends her best wishes for a successful roundtable greeting today. I'm also here to bring you greetings on behalf of the Division of the Humanities in the College of Arts and Sciences. The idea of a round table, this table is not round, but the idea of a round table in my mind conjures up images of eating delicious food and consuming your favorite beverages. Well, today you will consume intellectual food and drink for thought. While the presenters on the roundtable panels represent several academic disciplines, they will all share thoughts on our common and enduring concerns regarding our humanity and our education about the human cause and condition. I would like to welcome all of you here and to thank all of you, our invited guests, participants from both Howard University and outside. A special thanks to the roundtable organizers, Dr. David Green, Department of English, and Dr. Segun, Department of Classics. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy, learn, interact, and share. Thank you. And again, good morning. I brought my copy of this that I was given some years ago, and I often pull it out when I need a neat quote on African rhetoric. So I just wanted you to see that, okay? Thank you.
Okay, when you're on. Well, thank you very much, Dean Davis, for the excellent remarks and for actually, once again, supporting the endeavor here. Next, I will invite Dr. Tuli. When I got here, Dr. Tuli was chair of the Humanities Division, and he was the one that started with the assignment, not the yoke or burden, to actually organize the conference then with Dr. Green. And so he's here to make some comments as well. Dr. Otuli, you're welcome to support. Thank you.
Hello. Seems I always have to speak after Dean Davis. Never an easy task. On behalf of the Howard University Department of Classics, which is Segun Ige's home department, I would like to welcome all of you most warmly for sharing this event, whether as participants or as audience members. Dr. Ige, who has been at Howard for several years, is the founder of the African Association of Rhetoric and the editor of its house journal, the African Journal of Rhetoric, and he is active internationally in promoting through publications and conferences an examination of the critical intersection between rhetoric, power, and leadership, both in Africa and in the United States. Along with Dr. David Green from the Department of English and others, it has had a great impact on bringing these topics to the fore at Howard, including a major conference on W.E.B. Du Bois, Leadership and Rhetoric, which Segun and David jointly hosted a few years back, which is what was just referred to. Dr. Ige is one of the most optimistic people I know, and I often joke by calling him Dr. Pangloss. But his fundamental vision of trying to make rhetoric a cornerstone of leadership and progress in Africa and elsewhere is a profound one. Mao Zedong, of course, famously said that all political power flows from the barrel of a gun. And this statement is hardly original. It can be traced back to the argument of Thrasymachus in Plato's Republic. And it epitomized the working assumption of the 20th century, with what results we all know. The amount of war, chaos, revolution, and tyranny, the number of deaths through international conflict, genocide, global criminal enterprise, and neglect in the 20th century has been astronomical. But Mao's dictum is no longer a workable assumption. The advent of modern weaponry, of nuclear and biological weapons, means that total war is now an utter impossibility. And so mankind must find a different mechanism for the resolution of conflict and for determining the means of compromise and progress. And while there are less promising alternatives at hand, the global use of leadership and rhetoric as modes of mediation presents us with one of the very few viable, positive alternatives. And these are the topics that Dr. Ige and his associates ultimately have been exploring. And so, with those very brief comments, I turn it over to Dr. Ige and the rest of you, and thank you once again for coming.
Thank you very much, Dr. Otuli. Thank you very much, Dr. Otuli. He's been a great inspiration in the department. Just before I turn the roundtable over to Dr. Green, who was the moderator of the session, I should like to pay a tribute to a colleague of ours who was at a meeting in 2017. And he and Dr. Gilbert Montotebe were our keynote speakers. But I think on the 10th of March this year, I got a call from my younger brother in Texas saying it was bad news. I said, what was it? He said, Paris is gone. I said, to where? He said, he died in a big plane crash. The plane that went down in Ethiopia. And it was really very sad because the last edition of the journal was actually on the dedication page. The dedication becomes a quote from the speech he gave in 2017. I was hoping that whenever I visited Canada, I would actually hand it over to him in person. So, in actual fact, I wasn't able to. And so this is just a short tribute to him, and I would like to read this poem. Now, I think I lost my If you have the copy of the program, it's on one of the pages there. The wind of 1,000 imprints. Relentlessly, gallantly ascended. Bigger, heavier, louder. The evil wind that shadowed the craft of going that hatched on the African scape released your restless soul to fly higher, to soar yonder, to behold wonders most holy and horizons most sacred. Why? Oh, why did you have to leave so soon? Are you the son of Afonja, the legendary bowman, killer of a battalion on an arrow most single, or the thunder of Shango? That terrifying fury that rages across the sky at noonday against his foes, or the staff of Oromia, the index finger of the hallowed earth, pointing to the distant realms of unknown heights. Are you Kapo, Ilegwejio de Oakarao, the wandering hunters on the wild side of the mythical range of the mountains of marauding spirits? Your changeling heart defies my logic. Why use the Jewish sacred text if you are a Emir? Or the words of a foreign god if you are an ancestor of 1,000 tribes? Or left your produce unharvested if you have sown your pouch of 1,000 seeds? I shall not thrice summon you, or scout your troughs in the crags or crevices of battered walls. I shall not seek your flight among the ravenous birds, insidious creatures that prey on innocent souls, or sprint among the deers, victuals of predators disguised as marshals of the jungle, or in the appetite of nanny goats, fed now and thereafter caned for obdurate insolence, nor among the lizards whose belligerent tail fights stir the dust in the rubbles of incongruous moral debilitations. I shall seek you among the lustrous sons of Africa. You are royalty, the scion of the lineage of legends, Oduduwa's child. You are the itinerant nugget, the tantalizing rhapsodies of the oracle, the scintillating wisdom of the African mind. You are the effervescent, vociferous feather-cut pen, gliding facilely on the wax plates of 1,000 tablets. You are the boisterous wind of 1,000 imprints. Thank you very much. I need to move on to Dr. Bruno.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we'll get our first roundtable started. Our first speaker, Dr. Omedi Ochin, Can the African Think? Philosophy, Theory, and the Geography of Speculative Imagination.
Do you still need the PowerPoint setup? Yes. Okay.
thank you so much for this invitation. And I'm very grateful to Professor Ige for the invitation, but also to Howard for receiving me. My name is Omedi Ocheng. I teach Rhetoric at Denison University. My title is Can the African Think? Philosophy, Theory, and the Geography of Speculative Imagination. I advance it, therefore, as a suspicion only that the blacks, whether originally a distinct race or made distinct by time and circumstances, are inferior to the whites in the endowments both of body and mind. Those are the words, of course, as you know, of Thomas Jefferson in his Notes on the State of Virginia. Now, this infamous statement will be familiar enough to those of you who are acquainted with US political philosophy. But I'm much more interested in the place of suspicion in Jefferson's statement, specifically that in advancing his suspicion of black inferiority, Jefferson is taking himself to be engaged in the practice of speculation. Jefferson, moreover, sees speculation as deeply intertwined with the practice of philosophy. He goes on to add to his suspicion the following statement. He says, it's not against experience to suppose that different species of the same genus or varieties of the same species may possess different qualifications. We're not a lover of natural history then, one who views the gradations in all the races of animals with the eye of philosophy, excuse an effort to keep those in the department of man as distinct as nature has formed them. So there's sort of a connection here between suspicion, speculation, and philosophy. Now, Jefferson was not in his time the first to advance such suspicions of black inferiority and its upshot, white supremacy. In his essay of National Characters, David Hume says, and again, not that same wording, he says, I'm apt to suspect the Negroes and in general all the other species of men to be naturally inferior to the whites. There never was a civilized nation of any other complexion than white, nor even any individual eminent either in action or speculation. No ingenious structures amongst them, no arts and no sciences. Okay. I'm just interested again in that constant recurrence in a lot of the statements of suspicion, of suspicion and its connection to speculation, and then its connection to philosophy. We can go on to somebody like Joseph Conrad, at least his character Marlowe in his novel The Heart of Darkness, where Marlowe says, again, in a different register this time, okay, but one still ranked with white supremacist presuppositions. Marlowe says, no, they were not inhuman. Well, you know, that was the worst of it, this suspicion that they were not inhuman. They howled and leaped and spun and made horrid faces, but what thrilled you was just the thought of their humanity like yours, the thought of your remote kinship with this wild and passionate uproar. What then, one might wonder, is that connection between suspicion and speculation? And what is its connection to philosophy? Suspicion and speculation are deeply intertwined, at least etymologically. The words are formed from that Latin prefix, sub, under, below, beneath, and the verb specere, look or see. Commentators have, of course, long noted Jefferson's empiricist epistemology. He invokes his experience as an observer of natural history to ground his claims to black inferiority. In much the same way that experience shows that different species or varieties within a species have different qualifications, so Jefferson concludes that this holds in the case of humans. Okay. Now, the historical context for the flourishing of white supremacist speculation was, as is well known, the ascendance and dominance of global capitalism. The modern corporations that emerged were not only a world-scale behemoths that seemed inscrutable to their underlying actual value, but also pioneered the creation of future-oriented corporate accounting methods and financial instruments. If for a time the value of a corporation came to be defined by its potential to offer returns on its future earnings, even this was soon made passé as the buying and selling of shares came to rest largely on the volume at which it was being traded. Thus, the history of North Atlantic philosophy and theory cannot be understood, I don't think, without taking into account its embeddedness in racial capitalism, where, of course, we know is sort of the heart of speculation, the heart of speculative financial accounting. So here's the upshot of what I'm arguing here, and I'm trying to be as schematic as possible because of time. Okay. That what goes by the name North Atlantic philosophy cannot be understood without coming to terms with its constitutive suspicion of blackness. That this suspicion shadows North Atlantic philosophy's claim to be the fountainhead for speculation. For Jefferson, speculation is the beginning of thought. For Hegel, speculative thought is the highest realization of thought. But whether at the beginning or at the end, they are both agreed that black people are incapable of abstract thought. Black people then are not only the objects of speculation, they're also seen as incapable of speculating. Consider, for example, a striking passage, again, one that may be very familiar to those of you here in Howard, of Frederick Douglass's autobiography, My Bondage and My Freedom, where he says, okay, during the first 3 or 4 months, my speeches were almost exclusively made up of narrations of my own personal experience as a slave. Let us have the facts, said the people. So also said friend George Foster, who always wished to pin me down to my simple narrative. Give us the facts, said John A. Collins of the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society. We will take care of the philosophy. So Douglas draws attention to just how much the doors of theorizing and philosophizing have often been closed to people on the basis of skin color and geography. Never yet could I find a black who had uttered a thought above the level of plain narration. That's Jefferson in his notes on the state of Nigeria. Black people are the raw facts, white people provide the theory. Black people are the bodies, white people provide the mind. Whites are the universal, black people are fodder for speculation. White people do the speculation, and black people do their experience. We know for the most part that throughout modernity there has been this geography to philosophy and to theory. Now, however much white supremacy has sought to gain this end, though, black people have always speculated. And I say here speculation deliberately, because I want to capture the multifarious forms of thought by black people, something that may be lost if we simply label it philosophy or even theory. I would call these forms of thought radical speculation, if only because the word philosophy has too often been used as a cudgel of exclusion and hierarchy. But to do justice to black thought, we cannot look in the usual spaces. We cannot simply expect that the academy, let alone the formal structures of the state and civil society, are going to tell us much about these forms of thought. And here I want to then suggest that African intellectuals give us an entirely radical alternative portrait of thinking than the one that is dominant in the North Atlantic world. Specifically, I want to draw your attention to the thought and practice of Juan Amilcar Cabral, the Guinean intellectual and revolutionary. Born on 12 September 1924, Cabral was one of the founders of the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, the movement that fought for the independence of these colonies against Portuguese colonial rule. Now, it's not possible, given our time constraints, for me to offer a complete accounting of the very complex theoretical arguments of Cabral. But I want to sort of argue here that if we are going to be thinking about black speculation, black theory, black philosophy maybe, then we need to engage with the work of Amilcar Cabral. And here I want to sort of just outline at least three ways in which he helps us move into a richer view of what speculation may involve. First, Cabral articulates a conception of speculation as responsiveness. He was a trained agronomist, and much of his early work involved the study of Inuit agriculture. For Cabral, then, speculation is not the expression of individual genius. Rather, it's being attuned to the ecology from which a person works. It's much more sort of a response to one's ecology than it is a projection onto that ecology. That projection may come, but it begins with sort of this reception. Okay. Second, he articulates a conception of speculation as labor. In the North Atlantic intellectual tradition, we know there's a sharp distinction drawn between thought and action, mind and body. For Cabral and many of his followers, theorizing begins by listening to subsistence farmers in the countryside, to listening then as a form of labor, to thought, to speculation as a form of labor. Okay. This is not only because ideas necessary for survival and strategizing demand a great deal of exertion, but it's also because Cabral wants us to pay attention to the conditions of possibility from which theorizing begins. Now, he also pushes against a narrowly reductive notion of speculation as only instrumental. On the one hand, Cabral wants to affirm the instrumental uses of speculation. One of his famous speeches, obviously, is the weapon of theory. So he knows about the instrumental uses of theory. But he wants us to go beyond that, to pay attention as well to how theory itself is reflexive. It makes us critique ourselves. It makes us stand back and engage in a sort of self-critique of our own assumptions. And then lastly, Cabral articulates speculation as democratic. Okay? He wants to affirm the notion that all are capable of speculating.